Good evening and welcome to the Greg Thompson Sports Show, where tonight we will whip around all the Week 11 NFL action, talking about what impacts the playoff races coming in, and maybe even taking some questions from Bills fans towards the end. Here, we'll check out and see where things go. But without further ado, we will jump right in. Tonight's show is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you check them out. Anything that you use over there, you can use promo code Cover1 and your first deposit will be matched up to $500. So use promo code Cover1, get yourself a little extra money. If your fantasy team is down in the dumps and you have a chance to be able to draft a new team every week, be able to go have some fun, still be able to track some of the action. If your real fantasy football team season long is not going to make the playoffs, this is your chance to be able to get in there and still be able to have a good time. Check it out. Use promo code Cover1, and they will match your first deposit up to $500. Without further ado, the week opened up with one of the best Thursday night football games we've seen all season with the Baltimore Ravens and the Cincinnati Bengals. Sadly, there was a great amount of injuries that impacted what was going on here. We obviously saw Joe Burrow and his injury from the wrist tendon. This was 2 days after they had announced Deshaun Watson was out for the season. The Baltimore Ravens were able to get a win, but they lost Mark Andrews for the season. So just a really impactful week for the AFC North, all pulling things together and looking like the best division of football, now losing three incredibly important players to those teams. Jake Browning actually looked okay coming in. He's obviously incredibly limited. We'll see what they do from a game plan standpoint, but it's really hard to see with Cincinnati's schedule the rest of the way. They don't play a team with a losing record the rest of the way as of now. That might have changed with some of the action today, but a really tough schedule. Their run game is okay. Maybe they get T. Higgins back, but it's really, really hard to see a reasonable path for them going forward. The Ravens at times have looked like one of the best teams in football. Their run game was really good. They couldn't get Keaton Mitchell going as much as they had before, but probably as explosive as Odell Beckham has looked in a long, long time since that Super Bowl almost 2 years ago. And we'll see where that goes. Mark Andrews has still been the centerpiece of that passing offense. I'm curious to see what teams do as they adjust to that, but the Ravens are good. We'll see what they can do the rest of the way. With today's action, it opened up with, what was an incredible defensive game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. The Browns, who had just announced they signed Joe Flacco, so I'm assuming that Flacco is going to step in for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. They did. I would say they won despite him. I think that he made a couple plays. He did run for a couple critical pickups. Jerome Ford ran tough. They were able to go, but this was more about the defense. The Browns defense was just absolutely, stifling to the Pittsburgh Steelers. If not for the one Jaylen Warren 74-yard touchdown run, Pittsburgh just could not get anything going all day long. Incredibly limiting. One of the most hysterical stats I saw today is that Tommy DeVito now has more games with multiple passing touchdowns in his career than Kenny Pickett does. That's insane. Tommy DeVito has played just a couple games in the NFL. Kenny Pickett is just not the answer to any question that matters. This Cleveland Browns defense is phenomenal. I don't know that signing Joe Flacco is going to matter, but they're 7-3, and 7-3 is, going to matter down the stretch here. Even if they go, 3-3 or, 3-4 down the stretch, they could have a losing record the rest of the way and still get to 10 wins. So we'll see how that goes. They have a fair amount of winnable games on their schedule. The Pittsburgh Steelers one-score game luck had finally ran out. They fall to 6-4. I think this is a pumpkin that's hit midnight, and that's going to show down the stretch here. So we'll see where this Pittsburgh Steelers offense goes, but they right now are technically ahead of the Buffalo Bills in the tiebreaker range. So we'll see how they finish things out. A game that many Bills fans were rooting for was the Arizona Cardinals to be able to beat the Houston Texans, and Houston gave them every opportunity to come back and win this game. A couple, rough turnovers, but Kyler Murray kept them in the game. They had a chance down the stretches, couldn't get it done. Another huge game for Devin Singletary, 22 carries for 112 yards after last week's 151-yard game. CJ Stroud, not his best game, 3 interceptions. Again, they gave them every chance to be able to come back in this game and to be able to make a match of it, but just Arizona couldn't do it regardless of how much they dared them to get back in this game. Tank Dell made one of the most impressive catches you're going to see. And I think in today's NFL, having a player like him at his size was just never feasible before, and now is really, really exciting. So this Houston Texans team is on the come up. They're also 6-4. Curious to see how they play down the stretch here. But if the playoffs started today, they'd be in, and that's exciting to be able to see for a team like that. Our next game, maybe one that Bills fans were hoping that Tennessee could put up a little bit more of a match, but Jacksonville just pulled away right from the beginning. It was never terribly close with this one. They had an immediate lead, huge breakout game, for Calvin Ridley, who had been letting teams down, letting fantasy owners down for a little while here. And they really were able to put together multiple, defensive scores as they went through and really controlled this from the beginning. I will say, as producer Chris noted earlier, big man touchdown. Jeffrey Simmons did score a fat man touchdown. All of those will be celebrated on this show at all times. But Jacksonville wins. Looks like they have just an absolute lock on that AFC South. Houston is making it interesting. There's going to be a match coming up there between the two of them where they could make it a little bit interesting, but I'm curious to see where that goes. In a game that I know Bills fans were watching closely, the Miami Dolphins struggled with the Las Vegas Raiders. This game was within a score the entire game. Las Vegas had a lead early. They had the ball multiple times down the stretch with a chance to be able to take a lead. Miami was the better team, and they still made enough plays to be able to hold on, but they let Las Vegas hang around here and had a chance. And this is the first time that the Dolphins didn't boat race a bad team. Obviously, a lot of people have talked about they have really kind of destroyed a lot of the lesser teams that they've played and just completely pulled away. Devon Achane got hurt during this game and did not come back. Tyreek Hill got hurt but did come back. Just something to watch for Miami. This was a rare miss for them against the lesser competition. They have a tough schedule coming up the rest of the way here, but a couple more easy ones before it really gets into it. And as Jason was saying there, the Dolphins look like us, sloppy and with turnovers earlier. That was very similar to how the Bills had been playing coming into today's game. One of the other 1 p.m. games here was the Cowboys just completely dominating the Panthers. They dominated this game from start to finish. Tony Pollard got in the end zone. They really just were kind of on cruise control the whole rest of the way. Garbage time touchdown at the end. The Carolina scored in the second half to be able to kind of make it a little bit closer, but the Cowboys put in Cooper Rush and Rico Dowdle was getting carries towards the end there. They didn't need to be able to really test anything out or push it, but CeeDee Lamb did score again from a fantasy perspective to get a little bit going. This game was never really competitive. A game that was very competitive was the Detroit Lions and Chicago Bears. The Bears were winning this game. They were up 2 scores with 4 minutes and 15 seconds left. They absolutely should have won this game, but Detroit came back like good teams do. They found a way to get back into a game. Jared Goff threw 3 interceptions. They lost a fumble. They had multiple turnovers and absolutely didn't deserve to win this game, but that's not how it works. That they won the game and found a way to do it. And this is one where Chicago is probably better off losing this game from a long-term building perspective, but they should have found a way to hold on to this game. It was ugly, and they should have found a way to be able to keep control and to be able to win this game when they had. But Detroit came back, won the game. They go to 8-2 and are still in prime position in the NFC. One of the more competitive games of the day was a mix of two teams, trading leads throughout the end of the game to be able to go down and win, giving opportunities to the other team. But the Green Bay Packers defeat the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers just cannot get out of their own way. They had multiple opportunities. Quentin Johnston had a game-winning touchdown that he just flat out dropped. He would have caught it and gone for a 60-plus yard game-winning touchdown, and instead dropped it, and the Packers were able to hold on. They lost Aaron Jones during this game, as well as Emmanuel Wilson, just multiple nasty injuries throughout the game. Just could not really get much of anything going, but did enough. And Jordan Love didn't turn the ball over, was able to did throw an interception. He did have a fumble and recovered one of his own, but lost one of his as well. And I think that that they are hanging around at the bottom of that NFC, and the Chargers, with how competitive the rest of the teams are, in the AFC. Amazingly, even though 4-6 doesn't sound that bad, that puts them 13th in the AFC. Just a really, really tough spot to be able to be at this point. In a surprise of the day, the New York Giants put up 31 points on the Washington Commanders. Washington was a huge kind of fantasy defense pickup for a lot of teams this week. Instead, Tommy DeVito goes out and throws for 246 and 3 touchdowns, and probably the most you know original Saquon Barkley looking game we've seen in a long time. He was explosive, breaking multiple big passes, 4 catches for 57 yards and 2 touchdowns, and really looked explosive in many of those. His 36-yard run was an incredibly explosive run. Just looked like the Saquon of old, and a really, really explosive, exciting player. And credit to the Giants defense. They played tough. I thought this Washington team was going to be able to pull away from them, but they were able to keep things under control and not let them kind of get away from them. So the Giants win a game where their fans probably weren't hoping for that. Their fans were probably hoping to be able to just get another loss here, and that hurts them from a draft perspective. But we'll see where that leaves them. The San Francisco 49ers get a easy win against Tampa Bay. They were on cruise control for the vast majority of this game. Never really in doubt. A lot of really nice plays to George Kittle. Really big George Kittle game as a relief valve outlet for Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy 21-25, just never really putting the ball at risk. Took some sacks where it was him being smart and not putting the ball at risk. So those 4 sacks were a little bit inflated for the way that he played. But this San Francisco team is really getting back to the team we saw in that 5-0 start before they lost 3-0. And when you have Deebo Samuel and George Kittle back in the game, it makes such a big difference for them from a weapon standpoint. And that's showing where they are now. And they're playing at their peak again. This Tampa Bay team has kind of hung around a little bit, but losing today, really hurts in their battle in the NFC South. One of the again, another upset of a team that's kind of out of it, going against a team many assume is going to be in the playoffs, is the Los Angeles Rams upsetting the Seattle Seahawks with a 10-point rally late in the game and a game-winning field goal nearly as time expired. Technically, I think there was a kickoff afterwards. And the Los Angeles Rams keep playing tough. They rotated in another running back here as Royce Freeman now goes for 17 carries and 73 yards. I think Kyron Williams might be due back for them pretty soon here. Puka Nacua played well. Cooper Kupp did have to exit and go. I haven't seen an update on his injury status yet, but certainly in position to continue to hang around in the NFC. And I think if things started right now, they're only again 2 games back from Seattle here, making it a little bit more competitive for that final 7 seed. We'll see where those things go. Seattle keeps messing around. It seems like there was a top tier with them in Minnesota as the 6 and 7 seeds, but as some of these teams like the Rams and the Packers keep kind of hanging around, it'll be interesting to see where things go in the NFC. I am going to pivot to the playoff bracket here. So in the AFC right now, the Chiefs will play the Eagles on Monday night, but they're there in that top group with the Chiefs and the Ravens. The Jaguars, they're in the AFC South, are looking good. The Dolphins leading the AFC East. And then you have right now, if the playoffs started, the 3 wild cards would be the Cleveland Browns, the Houston Texans, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Bills kept their hopes alive today with a win against the Jets. Some tough games on the schedule coming up, but multiple teams ahead of us have some tough games as well. So they're going to need to find a way to win a couple of these games. They don't have to beat all of the teams coming up on the schedule, but they do need to get a win here against either Philly or the Eagles or Dallas, or Philly or the Chiefs or Dallas. They can't go 0-3 in that stretch. They need to find a way. Then I think they can get some wins against the Chargers and the Patriots, and before the season clincher at the end against the Dolphins. Just get it within a game, so that game matters for the division. Stay within 1 game of the Dolphins, so that way that game with a tiebreaker, if they win, they'd be able to win the division and take it. Just find a way to hang around. I think they have a chance. The Dolphins have a couple more easy ones coming up, but then they have a tough stretch themselves. So we'll see where that one goes. Again, we've seen the Raiders kind of fall out. The Broncos are playing against the Vikings right now, trying to keep their hopes alive. The Chargers lost today, really hurt them. The Jets lost today, really hurt them. but a handful of teams are keeping themselves there. And I think that with Houston and Pittsburgh and their upcoming schedule, I think there's a couple losses for them as well. So we'll see how they're able to hang around the Browns. We'll see how they do with their next set of quarterback roulette as they bring in Joe Flacco for their push. And in the NFC, it really is starting to be defined. The Eagles, Lions, Niners are kind of their own top tier. The Cowboys, depending on the week, sometimes look there like they're in that top tier, but are the next best team. Someone has to win that NFC South. I think it's going to be the Saints, but maybe the Falcons will find a way to come back. And then you have the Vikings and the Seahawks looking like they're going to be those other wild card teams. I don't know that they're going to lose enough to let the Packers or Rams or anybody else catch up here, but that looks like it's going to be the playoff group in the NFC. We'll see if anybody else can make a game of it, but I think it's going to be something that will probably be that group just in depending on the order as the season goes. So again, we'll be here with you after each of these games, the rest of the way, kind of talking through the rest of the league, how everything came together, and what the impact is on the playoff picture in each of the teams. But we appreciate you guys jumping in to be able to chat here with us. We'll do a couple different things. As Chris here is asking, should I start hoping again? Cautious, one step at a time. We'll kind of figure out where those things go and what it could lead to. But the Bills certainly kept their hopes alive. Technically, they're not mathematically eliminated. There are teams ahead of them that I think are going to stumble and stub their toe as they go. So I think there's a chance that we see the Bills keep their hopes alive for a while longer here. As Spin brought up, the Bosa also got hurt for the Chargers again. So a lot of impactful injuries around the AFC, and that's certainly going to play a factor as the season progresses here. So thank you very much for checking us out. As we kind of get things rolling here, make sure you give us a like and a review. That really goes a long ways. We'll be talking through here the rest of the season, breaking down all the rest of the games in the league, how it impacts the playoff picture, and everything else going on. But on behalf of producer Chris Seth, I'm Greg Thompson. You've been listening to the Greg Thompson Sports Show, and we are out.